have a full agenda tonight. We are very thankful for the Brooklyn Children's Museum and them allowing us to have such a wonderful space tonight. I'd like to introduce Atiba Edwards and invite him to say a few words. Atiba is the executive director of the Brooklyn Children's Museum.
Good afternoon. It is always a pleasure to host this meeting and host as many meetings for CB8 and also the neighborhood here. My name is Atiba Edwards. I'm the president and CEO at Brooklyn Children's Museum. I've been here about 5 years. I started as a chief operating officer. I grew up in Brownsville. I grew up coming to this museum for most of my life. And I do want to introduce, so I started as a chief operating officer. I'm celebrating about a year and a month as president. But I want to introduce our new COO and executive vice president, Michael Williams. So we're here, as always, the team knows between me, now Michael, and Morgan, we can try to answer as many questions or have as many meetings as we may need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to have a roll call. I think we've asked for community board members to be in the first 2 rows, so it would be very helpful to us. So if you have not come down to the first 2 rows, please come down. All right.
Akuya Adu. Sharon Alexis Pierre.
Present.
Gail Branch Muhammad.
Here.
Diane Duke. Amar Elahi. Benny Fagan. Nishani Granville. Mohammed Hassan. Jamel Henderson. Malik Jabati. Afari John King. Francis Langley.
Here.
Robert Lapointe. Dr. Sarah Lazar.
Here.
Lisa Maldonado.
Here.
David Mantell. William Meehan.
Here.
Mimi Mitchell. Courtney Morgan. Theo Ortiz Joyner.
Present.
Tereya Petway. Robert Kuka.
Here.
Dr. Khadiza Ramarak. Anika Roach. Connor Ross.
Here.
Ezra Roth. Brian Saunders. Robin Smith.
Here.
Katie Taylor.
Here.
Dana Thompson. Mark Thurton.
Here.
Esmond. Dana said yes. Esmond Turnbull. Brianna Uwa. Gib Viconi.
Present.
Kimberly Watson.
Present.
Sharon Wedderburn.
Here.
Robert Witherwax present. Deborah Young.
Here.
Still a few shy.
We'll have the roll call again. Right, and before beginning, I need to announce that we really want to be respectful of people's time. We need to be out of the museum by 9:30, so I want everyone to remember that when they're making their presentations and or asking questions. So we would like to be timely and leave this evening by 9:30. Right, our first order of business is the public hearing, and that's under consideration for the Cannabis Ad Hoc Committee. Is the person here to report? So, with the wax, are you going?
Sure. You're
Thank
going to
you.
hear a lot from me tonight. Cannabis Ad Hoc Committee. The Cannabis Committee met on Monday, November 25th, 2024, to discuss the adult use dispensary application for BK Greenery to be located at 367 Flatbush Avenue between Park and Sterling Places. The licensee, Mr. Michael DeRiggs, informed the committee that the location would be family-run and operated, with his wife and adult children participating in the day-to-day operations. Each member would participate in the success of the business in terms of marketing, sales, merchandising, etc. The vision for BK Greenery is, quote, not only for a store, but for a space that supports the community and feels like a good neighbor, end quote. They explained that the space would be, quote, grounding in nature, end quote, filled with lush greenery to incorporate the naturalness of cannabis as an herb for healing. The establishment will operate Monday through Thursday from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday and Saturday from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., and will utilize security cameras connected to a central command station, security personnel, and multiple cashiers and bud tenders on each shift. The applicant team intends to offer delivery services once OCM, the Office of Cannabis Management, finalizes delivery requirements, and will seek to deliver within a 2-mile radius to Brooklyn customers. The applicant team has experience in the cannabis industry, having operated a cannabis cultivation farm in St. Vincent, where they originally are from. Unfortunately, they cited environmental traumas outside their control as the reason the farm had to be released. On motion made and seconded, the committee voted unanimously with 11 in favor to support the application as presented, and hopes the full board supports its recommendation. Are there any questions on the application?
Okay.
367 Flatbush Avenue. One more copy. Can I just see if anybody of the following have come in? Aquia Adu, Diane Duke, Amar Elahi, Benny Fagan, Najani Granville, Jamel Henderson, Malik Jabati, Tafari John King. Oh, Malik's at it, thank you. Let me just see if that's enough. Bobby puts us over the top. We're good.
All right. Roll call, please.
All right, so for the cannabis item, any more questions on the 367 Flatbush Avenue, BK Greenery? We get a motion? Motion by Mr. Piccone. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Watson. Aquia Adu. Sharon Alexis Pierre.
Yes.
Gail Branch Mohammed.
Yes.
Diane Duke. Amar Elahi. Benny Fagan.
Yes.
Najani Granville. Mohammed Hassan. Jamel Henderson. Malik Jabati. Tafari John King. Francis Langley.
Yes.
Robert Lapointe.
Yes.
Dr. Sarah Lazar.
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado.
Yes.
David Mantell. William Meehan. Mimi Mitchell. Courtney Morgan. Fiora Ortiz Joyner. Therea Petway. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Dr. Khadiza Ramarak. Anika Roach. Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth. Brian Saunders.
They want board members to sit.
Robin Smith. Katie Taylor. Dana Thompson.
My leg, I want to eat like.
Mark Thurton.
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull. Brianna Ua. Gib Piccone. Kimberly Watson. Sharon Winterburn. Robert Woodworks, yes. Deborah Young. The motion passes unanimously, 23 in favor.
One motion passes.
Ms. Watson. Oh, 23 in favor.
Oh, 23 in favor. All right, unanimous. Right, the next item under consideration is from the EST committee.
The EST committee met on Tuesday, November 26, 2024. The committee discussed the following. Number 1, resolution on discounted city bike membership for New York City students. In September 2024, the committee heard a presentation from Transportation Alternatives seeking board support for a resolution calling on Lyft, the parent company of City Bike, to provide discounted city bike memberships for students aged 16 and over who attend New York City DOE schools and CUNY schools. During their presentation, they illustrated some of the transit challenges students face, including delayed trains and buses, schools located far from transit, and lack of secure storage for personal bikes. It was noted that leveraging the existing infrastructure of city bike stations in New York City could add another option for students' commutes. Currently, a city bike membership costs $220 annually, which makes the service cost prohibitive for many students. However, a discounted membership at $60 or a $5 monthly fee would open the city bike network to New York City students at a far more affordable rate. The committee established a working group to review the draft resolution, and the committee voted 21 in favor with 1 abstention to support the following resolution for affordable student city bike memberships. The resolution is as follows. In recognition of the fact that, while City Bike has become an invaluable resource and additional mode of public transportation for New York City residents, solving the last mile challenge to destinations not easily accessible by public transit in a sustainable manner, The recent price hikes for City Bike memberships pose a significant barrier to accessibility for many New York City students who may have long and inconvenient school commutes and who might otherwise avail themselves of this resource. Brooklyn Community Board 8 supports offering a $5 per month membership to all New York City students aged 18 and above in order to provide them with affordable access to City Bike. Brooklyn Community Board 8 strongly proposes Lyft and the operators of City Bike to mandate cycling and road safety education as a precondition for this membership. Community Board 8 urges Mayor Adams, the New York City Departments of Education and Transportation, and CUNY institutions to allocate necessary resources and support for the implementation of this program, recognizing its potential to improve student transportation options, reduce chronic absenteeism, promote physical activity, and enhance academic performance among New York City students. End of the resolution. The committee hopes the full board supports the language in the resolution to offer heavily discounted City Bike memberships to all students ages 18 and over. 18 and over. The initial resolution that was brought to us was 16. We supported 18 and over. Any questions? Can I get a motion?
What question? I'm not gonna miss the reasoning. Why was it agreed to raise it from 16 to 18?
There were a few rationales behind that. Number one is the City Bike membership is only available if you're 18 and older. So that was the first and foremost one. We felt that was kind of limiting. And then there are age and maturity factors that we wanted to consider. We figured 18 was, and we broadened it too, because it wasn't just DOE or CUNY schools. We said any student 18 or older. So narrowed and broadened. Any other questions? Can we get a motion?
Motion to support the amendment, or the recommendation as written.
Mr. Ross? Seconded, Mr. Meehan.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Aquia Aju.
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre.
Yes.
Gail Branch Muhammad.
Yes.
Diane Duke. Amar Alahi. Malik Jabati. Tafari John King. Francis Langley.
Yes.
Robert Lapointe.
Yes.
Dr. Sarah Lazar.
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado.
Yes.
David Mantell. William Meehan.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell. Courtney Morgan. Fior Ortiz Joyner. Tereya Petway. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Dr. Khadija Ramarak. Annika Roach. Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth.
Yes.
Brian Saunders.
Yeah.
Robin Smith.
Yes.
Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Mark Thurton.
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull. Brianna Ua. Gib Vaconi.
Yes.
Kimberly Watson. Sharon Wedderburn.
Yes.
Robert Witherwax, yes. Deborah Young.
Yes.
Motion passes again unanimously, 26 in favor.
Thank you. Next item for public hearing is for consideration of the SLA, that's the Sidewalk Cafe Review Committee. And again, Rob,
There's a code name, sorry, Gil.
sorry. Right, there's a co-naming for Greater Bible Way Church, the northeast corner of Lincoln Place and Rochester Avenue.
In May 2024, the ESD committee heard a presentation from parishioners of Greater Bible Way Church to co-name the northeast corner of Lincoln Place at Rochester Avenue to HLR Apostolic Mecca Way. Church members explained that the many services in the community that highlight the church's decades of service to the community, including a weekly food pantry, clothing and school supply drives, and homework help for students, among many other services. The committee voted in November unanimously with 23 in favor to support the co-name requests and hope the full board supports the recommendation. Are the applicants here tonight?
Any questions?
What does HLR stand for?
I believe it's the initials of the pastor. Has been the pastor for 50 years or so. Any other questions? Can we get a motion? Finally to approve, any second? Dr. Lazar? Aquia Aju?
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre?
Yes.
Gail Branch Muhammad?
Yes.
Diane Duke?
Yes, sir.
I'm here.
Thank you, Ms. Duke. Amar Alahi, Benny Fagan,
Yes.
Nijani Granville, Mohammed Hassan, Jamel Henderson, Malik Jabati, Tafari John King, Francis Langley,
Yes.
Dr. Robert Lapointe, Dr. Sarah Lazar,
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado,
Yes.
David Mantell, William Meehan,
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell, Courtney Morgan, Theo Ortiz Joyner, Tereya Petway, Robert Kuka,
Yes.
Dr. Khadiza Ramarak, Annika Roach, Connor Ross,
Yes.
Ezra Roth,
Yes.
Brian Saunders, Robin Smith,
Yes.
Katie Taylor,
Yes.
Dana Thompson, Mark Thurton,
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull, Brianna Ua, Gib Viconi, Kimberly Watson, Sharon Wedderburn,
Yes.
Robert Witherwax, yes, Deborah Young.
Yes.
Motion passes 27 in favor unanimously.
Right, next item for public hearing is the SLA and Sidewalk Cafe Review Committee. And again, Robert Whitworth.
Still me. The SLA committee met on Monday, December 2nd. The committee discussed the following. 1, a new full liquor license application for the Brooklyn Children's Museum, 145 Brooklyn Avenue, corner of St. Mark's Avenue. Details of the application include the museum would hold the license in this instance versus a third party operating the cafe as it had done in previous years. Mr. Atiba Edwards, the executive director, presented the application. The hours of operation in the application were Wednesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. It consists of 2 spaces in the museum, the cafe space, where we usually meet, max capacity of 135, and the rooftop terrace with a maximum capacity of 750. The committee voted 10 in favor with 1 abstention to support the application and hopes the full board supports its recommendation. Any questions on the application?
Can I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the application.
Second.
Keys Joyner and Mr. Saunders. Quia Aju,
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre,
Yes.
Gail Branch Mohammed,
Yes.
Diane Duke,
Yes.
Amar Alahi, Benny Fagan,
Yes.
Nijani Granville, Mohammed Hassan, Jamel Henderson, Malik Jabati, Tafari John King,
Yes.
Francis Langley,
Yes.
Robert Lapointe,
Yes.
Dr. Sarah Lazar,
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado,
Yes.
David Mantell, William Meehan,
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell, Courtney Morgan, Theo Ortiz Joyner,
Yes.
Tereya Petway, Robert Kuka,
Yes.
Dr. Khadiza Ramarak, Annika Roach, Connor Ross,
Yes.
Ezra Roth,
Yes.
Brian Saunders, Robin Smith,
No.
Katie Taylor,
Yes.
Dana Thompson, Mark Thurton,
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull, Brianna Ua, yes, Deborah Young.
Yes.
The motion passes 25 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Congratulations, Atif.
Should ask if the applicant was here tonight, but we did that. A second of 3 items for the SLA committee. Upgrade the existing license for Holic Tide Bistro, 592 Nostrand Avenue between Atlantic and Pacific Streets. And the applicant is upgrading from a beer, wine, cider license to a full license with the same parameters of operation as previous. Details of the application include the hours of operation Sunday through Wednesday from noon to 10:30 and Thursday through Saturday noon to 11:30. There is 1 bar space with 7 seats and 6 tables with 2 to 4 seats each with a maximum of 24 seats. There is recorded background music. The committee voted 11 in favor to support the application and hopes the full board supports its recommendation.
Is the proprietor here tonight?
Thank you for coming. Any questions?
Someone make a motion?
Move to support the committee's recommendation.
Mr. Meehan and Ms. Duke. Thank you. We'll start the roll. Quia Aju,
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre,
Yes.
Gail Branch Mohammed,
Yes.
Diane Duke,
Yes.
Amar Alahi, Benny Fagan,
Yes.
Nijani Granville, Mohammed Hassan, Jamel Henderson, Malik Jabati, Tafari John King, Francis Langley, Robert Lapointe, Dr. Sarah Lazar, Lisa Maldonado, David Mantell, William Meehan, Mimi Mitchell, Courtney Morgan, Fiora Ortiz-Joyner, Terea Petway, Robert Puka,
Yes.
Dr. Khadiza Ramarak, Annika Roach, Connor Ross, Ezra Roth,
Yes.
Brian Saunders, Robin Smith, Katie Taylor, Dana Thompson, Mark Thurton, Esmond Turnbull, Brianna Ua, Gib Viconi, Kimberly Watson, Sharon Wedderburn, Robert Witherwax, yes, Deborah Young.
Yes.
The motion passes 26 in favor with 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Our final item was a dining out application. This is the newish program that DOT has rolled out to replace both the street seating and the sidewalk cafe regimens. This is for the Bearded Lady at 686A Washington Avenue on the corner of St. Mark's Avenue. The application is for 2 9-foot-long roadway beds, one on Washington Avenue and one on St. Mark's Avenue. Each structure would have 8 seats. The applicant has also applied for a sidewalk cafe under the dining out program with a 32 by 10 square foot cafe on St. Mark's Avenue and a 16 by 7 foot cafe on Washington Avenue with 36 seats total. That was previously approved, right? Yeah. So only before us tonight are the 2 roadway seating areas. The committee voted 11 in favor to support the application and hopes the full board supports its recommendation.
Any questions?
Whatever.
So given the existing cafe they have and the additional seats they'll get in road bed, how many seats will they have outdoors? Vis-a-vis, what is their seating indoors?
They'll have 52 seats outdoors. We don't really count seats indoors for bars as opposed to restaurants. We count maximum capacity, and it's usually 75.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed the meeting, but what are the hours for the exterior?
Let me check. I might have that on my laptop. We generally ask for all roadways to be, or all exterior seating to be no later than 10 p.m. on the weeknights and 11 p.m. on the weekends. And it wasn't part of the motion that we made, but we can add it tonight if you want.
Please.
Make a motion.
I'll finish the questions and then I'll make a motion on it. If anyone else has any other questions?
Are there other questions? Bearded Lady, 686A, Washington Avenue. All right.
I make a motion to accept with the stipulation of the hours that you just mentioned, 10 o'clock during the week and 11 on the weekends.
Mr. Thurton has made a motion to support with the amendment that the outdoor elements close no later than 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday evenings and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday evenings. Is there a second? Mr. Viconi seconds. Any other questions on the motion? Aquia Adu?
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre?
Yes.
Gail Branch Mohammed?
Yes.
Diane Duke? Amar Elahi? Benny Fagan?
Yes.
Nishani Granville? Mohammed Hassan? Jamel Henderson? Malik Jabati? Tafari John King? Francis Langley? Robert Lapointe? Dr. Sarah Lazar? Lisa Maldonado? David Mantell? William Meehan? Mimi Mitchell? Courtney Morgan? Fiora Ortiz-Joyner? Terea Petway? Robert Buka?
Yes.
Dr. Khadiza Ramarak? Annika Roach? Connor Ross? Ezra Roth?
Yes.
Brian Saunders? Robin Smith? Katie Taylor?
Yes.
Dana Thompson? You can do this. Mark Thurton? Esmond Turnbull? Brianna Ua? Gib Viconi? Kimberly Watson? Sharon Wedderburn?
No.
Robert Witherwax, yes. Deborah Young? The motion passes with 22 in favor, 2 opposed, and 3 abstentions.
question to ask are the proprietors for our beer lady here tonight? Right, our next agenda item for public hearing is the vote on the Atlantic Avenue mixed-use plan. Again, that's the AAMUP, or you hear people say AMUP. Who do we have presenting first?
I'll be
Sharon Weatherbeard.
So my name is Sharon Wedderburn. For those of you who don't know me, I chair the Housing Advocacy and Land Use Committee. This has been a collaborative endeavor, so this evening you're also going to be hearing from Gil Bocconi, who has championed the M-Town project, which has morphed into AAMUP, from Brian Saunders and Lisa Maldonado, who represent the Economic Development Committee, and we will also be hearing from, once again, Robert Witherwax from the Environmental Sanitation and Transportation Committee, otherwise known as EST. Thank you. So we haven't practiced this, so please forgive us any inconsistencies. Thank you so much for doing this, Kate. All right? So we are presenting the Atlantic Avenue mixed-use plan, and what it is a ULUP action. Next slide, please. Okay, so you're going to have to know some of our acronyms, and I'm also going to be reading along with you. So MPROW is what we dub this endeavor to rezone a light manufacturing zone known as an M11 zone. MPROW stands for Manufacturing, Commercial, and Residential Opportunity for a Working Neighborhood. Part of what came out, how that got named as such, is that it speaks to our objectives. What do we want to do? We want to have people who live in the neighborhood to have an opportunity to work in the neighborhood and make a decent wage. As everyone understands in this community, affordability from housing has become an issue. So the people that we would like to have new working opportunities would be able to obtain jobs that are well-paying but do not require a bachelor's degree. And we'll have a working neighborhood. AAMUP began as a rezoning project spearheaded by the Department of City Planning. They work collaboratively with other agencies in the city, Department of DCP, Department of City Planning, SBS, Small Business Services, HPD, Housing Preservation and Development, and this project is so special that we even have a developer for a project that is slated to be built within this area and have special zoning. Although Joe from JDF is present, but you'll hear from her, she'll have the opportunity to speak to you guys later. And what is ULUP? ULUP is the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure. It was put into the city charter so that community boards would have an opportunity to weigh in on significant zoning changes in this neighborhood. This is a zoning action. And what does zoning do? Zoning lets you know what can be built in a particular area. The other part of this is that there are several different parts of zoning, right? So this community board is now in its review period, which is a 60-day review period. That will expire on December 24th. This is our opportunity to give other agencies, other entities that will be involved in making decisions around this land use item, such as Borough Hall, such as DCP, such as the Councilwoman Hudson, and Councilman Chiose. I never get that
Chiose.
right. Thank you. I never get that right, but I try hard. Katie, next slide, please. Okay. Did I explain this already? I did. I was out.
Great job,
So
Sharon.
this is all of mine. So AAMUP. Okay. So what is AAMUP? AAMUP is an initiative by which we're going to be able to do the studies and create the zoning opportunities. Initiated from the city. It basically January of 2023, the councilwoman wrote a letter to the city planning chair. Another name I have difficulty saying, Dan Garodny. Okay, all right. And so to express our interest in moving forward with this, because it is better to have an active site within the community board that provides opportunities for the community than rather than have a fallow site. If you have the opportunity to walk through the study area, you'll see there's surface parking for automobiles, among other things, right? Next slide. Okay, so here's how we got here, and I'm just gonna give everyone the opportunity to take a look at the slide to see there were several issues that we wanted to resolve with this. We've got several private land use applications within the study area. The community has needs, that's how we derived MCROM. AAMUP working group was formed after the initial letter that was sent to the department, the DCP chair, and it was composed of different factors of the community. You have to understand there's not only housing needs, there are economic development needs, small business needs, and did I say housing? Okay, I think I said housing before. So this is nominated by the council people. This group, over a period of time, went through a facilitated exercise so we could identify the core issues within the group. Those groups were broken up into 3 different areas: economic development, housing, and infrastructure. Since this is fronting Atlantic Avenue, the major east-west commercial corridor in New York City, and even though some people would like to say it's the boulevard of death, you have never crossed Queens Boulevard, and I want to tell you right now, I will tell you right now that the speed limit on Atlantic Avenue is as high as 25 miles per hour and goes down to 15 miles per hour. So I wouldn't say, if you've ever been on Queens Boulevard, especially when the Horace Harding crosses it, this is not a death boulevard, in my opinion, right? So where are we now? The Department of City Planning submitted the ULUP application, and that was certified 2 months from December 24th. I'm so confused. So that's October 24th, guys? Yes? No? I'm looking, okay, October 24th. And there were some points of agreements that came out of the component groups. So there's a draft points of agreement. Here are elements that we would actually like to see in all of this. So where are we now? We're in the community board ULUP review. If you belong to any of the committees, you know we've had many meetings, and many of those meetings were very long. We're not trying to do that today. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to tag team Gib Coney with this. Gib Coney was the person who was championing M. Brown from the very beginning. He has intimate knowledge, and if I ever tried to discuss zoning or use groups, we would all be lost. I'm going to have a seat. I'm going to turn it over to Gib.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And thank you, Sharon, for that very excellent introduction, both an introduction into AAMUP and my introduction. So I'm going to talk about some of the conditions that are the land use conditions. If you were at the land use meeting where we voted on these conditions, you will notice that I'm going to be talking about fewer conditions than we voted on. And the reason is because some of the things we voted on in land use actually showed up later as overlaps with economic development and environment, sanitation, and transportation. So they've been merged. They haven't been lost. Don't get worried if you don't hear me say them. Other speakers will talk about them. So this is the AAMUP rezoning area that's been outlined in purple there. For the most part, begins at the southeast corner of Vanderbilt Avenue and Atlantic Avenue, and covers that block front down to Franklin Avenue, and then in Community District 8. I'm really only going to talk about Community District 8. I'm not going to attempt to cover Community District 3 tonight. And then it goes up Franklin Avenue and takes in 6 blocks of Crown Heights on Bourbon Street before reverting back to Atlantic Avenue. So as Sharon mentioned, this is an area that has had a lot of vacant properties that are not very productive, being used for surface parking and the like. And in 2015, this community board approved a resolution that laid out a vision for how that area could be put to better use for Community District 8. Can you go to the next slide? So that project was called MCRON. The vision was called MCRON. And basically, as Sharon said, the idea was to create a new set of rules for that area, Community District 8, that would promote affordable housing and also promote employment for people in need of better paying jobs in this neighborhood so they could afford to stay in this neighborhood. So the key pieces here were that we wanted to rezone the area, the M11 district. M11 is very restrictive zoning. It only allows the one-story manufacturing building. We wanted to allow for residential use that could help to cross-subsidize manufacturing space for job-creating uses. Then we wanted to have that, at this cross-subsidy B, that market rate housing that would make affordable manufacturing space viable. Third, we wanted to make sure the affordability levels would be set on the median income in Community District 8. Now remember, this is 2015, and that median income at the time was about $46,000. So it's a lot more now, but we still want to try to reach people at very low income levels. And when we talk about the conditions, we'll see how we're going to try to do that. And then last, we want to be able to tailor the manufacturing uses to create the kind of jobs that are most likely to generate employment for people who live in this community district but may not have a college education. Next slide. Actually, I think I think the goal here is to go through everything, and so we can have one discussion at the end. I'm kind of morphed into AAMUP. At the time, Councilmember Hudson took office, and she really began to shepherd a plan that had a very prominent transportation focus and safety focus with respect to Atlantic Avenue. And I'm just going to briefly go over the highlights of the AAMUP plan. The AAMUP plan, as presented by DCP, would create about 3,160 market rate homes, of which about 2,960, I believe, would be in Community District 8. Would create about 1,440 income restricted homes, that is affordable apartments, of which about 1,070 would be in Community District 8. And that number includes at least 3 100% affordable buildings that would be in Community District 8. So this is a tremendous amount of affordable housing and potentially deeply affordable housing that will come to Community District 8. On the economic development front, this rezoning, DCP believes, will generate about 828,000 square feet of commercial and community facility uses. So that's a lot of non-residential space for jobs. And actually, it is estimated that 2,800 new jobs will be created. And it's also proposed that there'll be a workforce development center located at the Bedford Atlantic Armory. So the idea that we will have new space for employers that provide the kind of jobs we want in this community, plus a workforce development center here in this community to help place people in those jobs is very powerful. Next slide. There'll also be a couple of parks renovations that are part of this project. One of them is in Community District 3. It's St. Andrews Playground. Right now it's just blacktop, and the Parks Department has proposed a very ambitious, I think the number was $24 million. Alex, is that right? I think that's what I heard. $24 million renovation of St. Andrews Playground. And it's also proposed that the new sort of combination lottery triangle under Hill Plaza will also be renovated and made a little bit more like a park. I don't think we know what the budget for that one. And then finally, there's a real focus, as we talked about, on design improvements for Atlantic Avenue and the surrounding streets. That will be a separate engagement exercise undertaken by the Department of Transportation after the rezoning is approved. It will involve significant community engagement. So the details of that right now are not all knowable because the community engagement hasn't happened, but the intention is to make Atlantic Avenue a place that's much safer for pedestrians, cyclists, drivers, consistent with the idea that we're going to locate a lot more housing. Next slide. So what we're doing here tonight is basically two things. Even though we've been working on this plan for a long time, we've actually been working on this plan with some of the folks from the Department of City Planning who are here now for almost the whole 10 years. In fact, let me just break for 1 second and say, we've been working on this plan for with a lot of the people sitting in this room for 10 years. And these things don't happen very often. This is a neighborhood rezoning. The last one that happened in this district, I think, happened in 2012, right? The Crown Heights West rezoning. And this one is much more impactful. So there's a lot more on the table, a lot more what we call non-zoning benefits, like additional affordable housing, workforce development centers, infrastructure upgrades, that this community district stands to gain from this than there was in 2012 with the Crown Heights West rezoning. None of those things were really significantly on the table at that time. So, even so, our committees, the Land Use Committee, the Environment, Sanitation, and Transportation Committee, and the Economic Development Committee have worked to try to fine-tune this proposal through additional conditions to make it more responsive and a stronger one for this neighborhood. So tonight, we're going to vote, we're going to be specifying what those conditions are, and then we're going to be voting on approval of the plan. This is a really big deal for those of you who've been around and have attended MCRAM meetings, and board meetings where we've discussed this over the years. I want to take this opportunity personally to just thank you. This is not a very easy thing to put together. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, input of a lot of people, even on the MCRAM side, more than 300 people participated in meetings over a period of about 5 years to help flesh that proposal. So it really is a very strong community-led effort, and I want to thank everybody who's been a part of it and everyone who is here tonight. It's a very special night for the community. Next slide. So now we're going to get on to the meat and potatoes of our discussion, which are the conditions. And those are broken up into 3 different areas. One of them is land use, what I'm going to talk about is land use. And then Brian Saunders is going to take over and talk about economic development. And I believe, Lisa, you're going to join him. And then Rob is going to talk about environment, sanitation, and transportation conditions. So the intention is that we're going to go through all of these. Again, this is the product of a considerable amount of committee work. And after we've discussed them all, and a motion has been made, there'll be an opportunity to have discussion on any of the conditions that folks here want to discuss. The idea is to leave here before the sun comes up, so we hope that you have one of these handouts and can look at it and get a sense of what things you might want to ask about. But right now, that's the intention. So let's have the next slide. The Land Use Committee has been talking about its work on MCRAM for over a decade. The committee met on December 5th and reviewed and approved a number of conditions that I'm going to describe right now. Next slide. So the first one, number 1, and these are the same numbers that are on your handouts if you have them. So later, if you have questions, please ask your question by naming the condition with the number. The first one relates to zoning, and it states that the F1.1 FAR incentive on the Special Atlantic Avenue Mixed-Use District for the M12A R6A zoning areas must include 0.5 FAR restricted to light industrial, arts-related, cultural, civic, and repair and production service uses. So what does that mean? First of all, the area we're talking about. The area we're talking about are on these blocks of Pacific Street, Dean Street, and the north side of Bergen Street, between Grand Avenue and Franklin Avenue. These are areas where we expect mixed-use buildings to come in, and they're only mixed use if developers put non-residential space in them. So there's an incentive being offered as part of the zoning for that additional non-residential space. The developer can build a bigger building because he's putting in non-residential space that generates jobs. The condition that the committee has here states that half of that one FAR, you can think of it as like a little more than 1 floor of a building, needs to be the types of job-creating uses that will be most beneficial to people in this community. That wasn't part of the Department of City Planning proposal, but it's been something that has been important to this community board and the MCRAM vision for the last 10 years. So that's what this condition states. Next slide. Similar concept here. This is another mixed-use zone. This was along Atlantic Avenue, and since it's Community District 8, we're concerned about the south side from Grand Avenue, Classen Avenue to Franklin Avenue. It reads, for buildings in the M14A R9A zoning area, the zoning is modified to M14A R8A with a maximum height of 145 feet and residential FAR of 7.2. An incentive 1.1 FAR is added to encourage the development of mixed-use buildings with a requirement for 0.5 FAR restricted to light industrial, arts-related, cultural, civic, and repair and production service uses. So it's the same concept. We want good jobs for people without a college degree located in these buildings as well, and we want to make that kind of baked into the incentive. Next slide. So this is a different chunk of MCRAM. Some of you may be familiar with this. There are 2 projects that were proposed over the Prospect Heights neighborhood on Dean Street and Bergen Street, probably about 4 years back. They are actions to transfer city land for private development of 100% affordable housing. They've been added to the M-Crown rezoning because it's easier to do all of this at once than have two separate actions. So the M-Crown rezoning proposes making the zoning here R7D. That's a lot bigger than the zoning we have today. The committee felt like it was appropriate for 100% affordable buildings. But for the other lots inside that red outline that aren't going to be 100% affordable buildings, the committee believed that the zoning they should be smaller buildings at R6A. So an R7B building is 11 stories tall. R6A building is 9 stories tall. I'm not getting a no from the Department of City Planning, sorry. I might have got that one. So the proposal here is that in the R6B district proposed for R7B zoning, residential development must be 100% affordable housing, or the applicable zoning shall be R6A. Next slide. So here, we should mention that there are a couple of buildings in the rezoning area that already are high-density manufacturing buildings. We want them to stay that way. We want them to be there creating jobs for the types of industries we want to have located in the new buildings. And since they're already there, we want them to be maintained that way. So the effect of this condition is to try to keep it that way. It says lots in the Special Atlantic Avenue mixed-use district, which as of the date of certification for ULURP contain more than 20,000 square feet occupied by non-residential tenants engaged in uses conforming to M1 zoning, if redeveloped, must contain floor area restricted to M11 conforming uses, equivalent to that occupied at the date of certification. This particularly applies to a building on Atlantic Avenue that's run by GMDC and the 1000 Dean building. So again, the idea is to preserve what we already have there, not have it in terms of employment, not have it get converted into housing. Next slide, please. So this is an important one. This has to do with the affordability of new affordable housing that is created inside the rezoning area. It calls for MIH options 1 and 2 to be removed from the application and create a new MIH option 3.5 and map it with 40% of the floor area targeting an average of 30% AMI. So this is a more aggressive, deeper affordability level of MIH that exists right now, and this is here to send a message to the later participants in the ULURP process, the borough president, the city council member, the city planning commission, and the mayor, that the existing MIH options still don't go low enough to serve this neighborhood. We're looking to do better. Next slide. Here, I want to make sure everybody understands that although there will be a significant amount of new affordable housing created inside new buildings as part of the mandatory inclusionary housing program, one of the benefits that we will receive as a function of this rezoning is having some 100% affordable buildings created on city-owned land. So besides the ones we looked at a second ago that are over on Dean and Bergen Street and Prospect Heights, there are another 5 buildings that are mentioned in the application that can be redeveloped for affordable housing, including 100% affordable housing in this neighborhood. They're not all called out at 100% affordable housing, and the affordability levels aren't called out. So the committee passed this condition to specify that we want all of these buildings and any others that become part of this application before it gets approved by the city council to be 100% affordable housing, targeting an average income of 25% AMI, which is a very low income. Next slide. Only two more from me, so you're almost out of the woods here. The next one goes to tenant protection. The comment was made in the meeting in November that TCP held that while HPD talked about having workshops and training for tenants' rights, the real need is for legal services to help represent tenants who are being forced out of their apartments. So here, we are looking for the city to make a 5-year commitment of $3 million annually to fund free representation to tenants in Community District 8, affirmative and defensive cases, allocating funding to organizations like Legal Services NYC, the Legal Aid Society, and the New York Legal Assistance Group. So this is a very, very important provision. This is really something that I don't know that this has been done before in the city rezoning, but it's the most effective way to make sure we're keeping the largest number of people from being displaced. And then finally, the last one, you can turn the slide, the last topic, which is also tenant protection, is also quite innovative. We believe there's an opportunity to create a new type of preference that doesn't exist right now for the affordable housing lotteries. This condition states HPD establishes a registry for tenants facing displacement pressure in the AAMUP study area, that is, who received legal representation through the fund previously described, as well as other intake channels. Should registered tenants be displaced, they shall receive preference for 50% of units of affordable housing created in any building developed as a consequence of the AAMUP rezoning, such units being separate from any units allocated to other preference classes that may exist at the time an affordable housing lottery takes place. So there's nothing like this right now. New York City actually doesn't have any way for somebody who's been displaced from a neighborhood to participate in an affordable housing lottery to return to that neighborhood. But Community District 8 and also Community District 3 are among the highest rates of displacement, or the highest rates of displacement in New York City. So we believe this is a really appropriate tool to help people who've been displaced from our community have a leg up on coming back to the community. And now that what's called the Durian lawsuit has been settled, we believe HPD may be more disposed to considering new types of preference, and we think this is the right opportunity to do it. So with that, I think following me is Brian, and I will turn things over to Brian. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Brian Saunders, and right here I have Lisa Malzano, and we're part of the Economic Development Committee. And we met December 10th, this past Tuesday. We came up with a lot of recommendations concerning these issues, and we want to address it and let you know what we thought and our perspective. Economic development was a little lengthy, so bear with this. And we're going to tag team with Lisa and myself. So I'm going to start it off. So one of the things, number 9. So we recommend a dedicated workforce development program. So the city shall create a career center and workforce development program specific to the AAMUP study areas located in the Bedford Atlantic Armory to operate for at least 10 years. And the program should include construction adjacent trades, green economy jobs associated with sustainable construction, light industrial, arts-related, cultural, civic, repair, production, and service jobs. It shall be staffed by 4 professionals and a target of at least 200 placements per year. And these programs are supposed to be prioritized to the residents of Community Board 2, 3, and 8.
And then we wanted to extend this training not only to adults in the community, but also to young people and young adults. So that's the next note. So we wanted to develop a career development and training programs for youth and young adults. And so we're asking, as part of this, that the city support career development and programs for youth ages 15 to 26 who reside in Community Board 2, 3, and 8 in areas including but not limited to construction adjacent trades, green arts-related, cultural, civic, repair, production, service, and jobs. So really, we're even thinking like going into the schools as well.
Next slide. So we during our discussions, we also talked about apprenticeship initiative programs. And how can we do that and accomplish that as well? Is that the city should fund construction apprenticeship incentive program for a period of 10 years with an annual contribution of $10 million. So they can provide contractors with grants for hiring clients of the AAMUP workforce development and youth and young adults programs, as well as existing workforce development programs in the areas affected by this, which is community boards 2, 3, and 8. So not just, we have to find some way to help find jobs and career development for everybody else who's in the community and not just outside.
And because we're going to be, AAMUP is creating so much commercial space, we want to make sure that there's support for people in our community to actually start businesses in this space. So we're calling for the city to develop a low-interest capital fund for a period of 10 years with an annual contribution of $10 million for local entrepreneurs, including entrepreneurs who may be displaced because of this development within the last 10 years, to locate in this AAMUP rezoning area, and with a focus on Black and minority and women entrepreneurs. And this minority and women entrepreneur certification shall be provided by either a nonprofit partner.
So as you hear, we're focusing on the 10 years. So we want to have at least this time frame. So also with that, for 10 years for a green technology incubator also as well. And to also be located inside the Bedford Atlantic Armory or other city-owned spaces in the study area. And with that also to be coordinated with other local governments, city and state as well. And a preference given to minority and MWE entrepreneurs. And in this program, we should have mentorships, office space, legal and technical support to access government programs, financial and other initiatives.
And the ULURP application contained an impact analysis of businesses that might be displaced and what the socioeconomic impact would be. And so we are really concerned. We want to make sure that any business that is directly displaced is compensated. And so we're calling for the city to make grants of over a 10-year period to local businesses who are displaced because of this rezoning, either directly or indirectly. And we want each of these businesses to be eligible to receive grants up to $250,000 adjusted from inflation from the date of adoption of the rezoning, and then case by case thereafter. And we also are asking for the city to provide funding for legal services, real estate, and other relocation support and advocacy services to these businesses. They may have to renegotiate their leases, etc. Businesses located in the proposed rezoning area since 2015 are eligible, whether or not they were located in the rezoning area at the time of the city council approval of the application. So.
All right, next slide. I know you're following along with us, we're reading also as well. But we also want, we want interested in, and we want an economic impact study also as well. And the city should fund the study to analyze the efforts and effects of the rezoning in the community with the goal of preventing displacement to the greatest extent possible. This study will be conducted by a proposed community oversight body and consultants with support from DCP, HPD, and SBS. It will include close tracking and monitoring of residents, businesses' displacement, and conditions for potential displacement as well. The study will be conducted every 3 years. It will include quantitative and qualitative data.
And we really want to make sure that the businesses who may be negatively impacted by this rezoning are part of this process. So we're calling, we want to make sure that we're notifying and supporting these businesses and
of the other things that we talked about also in the committee is just about supporting our local businesses as well. With that, just to help them the process as far as what's available to them. And so to set up the process so that local businesses can receive a preference for city contracting and proactive information regarding private business opportunities. And along with that, with the support for those processes as well. So we can enable business growth and the development.
So we're calling for a lot of light manufacturing type businesses, and we want to make sure that these businesses are able to function properly. We want to make sure that they have enough parking and loading zones so that they can conduct their business. So we're calling for zoning that will allow for on-site parking and sufficient for their uses.
So with that also as well, we saw 18, 19, and basically talk about the retail square footage restrictions. This zoning will allow for a maximum of 10,000 square feet for ground floor retail use throughout AAMUP, except for grocery stores to encourage small retail and discourage big box development. It was a lot of work in a short period of time to come up with these recommendations. And we employed, everyone that's here should also be a part of this process as well. There was a short amount of time to come up with all these ideas and conditions so we can proceed with this small window. And with that, I want to turn it over to the next part with EST, or Rob Witherwax. So I just want to thank Lisa and all the committee members of Economic Development Movement.
Brian, you stole what I was going to start off with, which is the last 3 or 4 weeks, some of us in this room have been to 5 or 6 committee meetings. Every single word you're reading tonight on these 4 pages were written by people in this room, people in this community, people who went to these meetings, who read and absorbed the zoning proposal the best they could, and came up with these conditions, these 25 conditions for which we will accept this. The other point I want to make is that the very fact that Brian and Lisa just spoke about economic development, and I'm going to speak on environment, sanitation, and transportation for a land use matter, is kind of revolutionary in and of itself. There's a lot in this package. There's a lot of benefits for this community. Next slide, please, Katie. Number 20, sidewalks and the pedestrian experience. So the EST committee, and some of these I will give credit to the land use committee too. Again, some of these originated with them and we love them and we adopted them, but I'm going to move through them. Here we are. 20A, install bollards in front of amenities like parks, specifically include bollards on the sidewalks adjacent to Dean Street Playground on Dean Street and Bergen Street. B, loading docks and/or entrances to off-street parking shall be designed to minimize intrusion into the pedestrian environment and disruption of the usage of Pacific, Dean, and Bergen Streets as local multimodal streets. Off-street parking, if built and not fully utilized by development residents, must be open to the public. And C, except for containerization, waste and recycling must be stored indoors, not on the sidewalks. One of the elements of the AAMUP plan is wider sidewalks on Atlantic Avenue. We want to make sure they aren't given over to garbage cans. Next slide, please. 21, streetscape. So here are a couple of programmatic ones. 21A, within 24 months, work with a local stakeholder community to develop a comprehensive plan for the street network in the AAMUP study area, the whole area, that both reflects Atlantic Avenue's vital importance for through travel, that also provides for safer east-west bike travel, safer crossings of Atlantic Avenue, a more livable and walkable environment on Atlantic, and improved bus travel. So the important thing there is that you start within 24 months to develop a comprehensive plan, right? So nothing is happening right away. Nothing is happening when presumably this gets voted in the spring, but a clock will start where the transportation-related changes will be begun to be considered at that point. 21B, we're also within 24 months, implement 6 safety improvement projects. These are light touch street improvements to promote safety on Atlantic Avenue intersections, including but not limited to moving west to east, 6th Avenue, Carlton Avenue, Vanderbilt Avenue, Clinton Avenue, Washington Avenue, Grand Avenue, Lassen Avenue, Franklin Avenue, Bedford Avenue, District Avenue, New York Avenue, Brooklyn Avenue, and Kingston Avenue. If I missed any, please consider it in there. Next slide, please, Kate. 21C, streetscape. Plan for a variety of curbside uses, including space for waste containers. Let's not forget that's coming for large buildings. They're going to have containerization in the street bed in front of the building, and loading zones in front of all entrances to large buildings. And specifically a loading zone in front of the building to be constructed at 542 Dean Street, which is going to be senior housing. And we want to make it very easy for our seniors to use the transportation that they need to use. Next slide, please. 22, transit-related conditions. A, capital improvements. 2, Clinton, Washington, Franklin, and Nostrand Avenue A and C train stations, and our good friend, the Franklin Avenue shuttle, including accessibility upgrades and reopening of closed entrances. 22B, the right-of-way on the Franklin Avenue shuttle should be protected and not infringed upon, with sufficient space for a potential reconstruction with 2 tracks, so don't narrow the shuttle. In the 22C, the B65 route should remain on Bergen and Dean Streets. 23A, the open space incentive is removed from the special Atlantic Avenue mixed-use district. Forgive me, Sharon, I'm going to explain this briefly and jump in if I get it wrong. One of the proposals that city planning has brought us is to give a zoning bonus, a bulk bonus, to developers who carve out a little ground floor space for a publicly accessible open space. It looks like a park, it acts like a park, it's not a park. We say no. We don't want to give a zoning bulk bonus for such a paltry amenity. We believe B, any new open spaces in this district should be parks. Or, if they are funded and owned privately, they should be administered by the Parks Department, rather than publicly accessible open spaces. Approval of any expansions or renovations to existing open spaces, and we've seen a couple of them in the slideshow already, should include community board review and outreach and notice to adjacent residents and businesses. All right? Next slide, please, Katie. 23C, all existing parks, gardens, and open spaces, whether public or private, will be protected from future development. And 23D, the Department of Parks shall install new astroturf and a new children's play area with heat-safe equipment at the Dean Street Playground. Next slide. Environmental. Abide by City of Yes carbon neutrality and other best practices. We go without saying, it's the law. 24B, a contiguous street canopy should be encouraged, and wherever possible, rain gardens should be installed with bioswales at the curb. Maintenance of them, cleaning, weeding, planting, etc., of street trees, planters, and rain gardens should be funded by the developments. Street furniture and redesigns should not interfere with the cleaning and maintenance of the curb zones, storm drains, etc. Next slide, please. And our last of 25 conditions, the city shall fund a consultant to act as a facilitator of a community oversight body formed to oversee the city's delivery of benefits committed as part of the AAMUP neighborhood rezoning to provide transparency and accountability. Funding shall be for 10 years of the date of approval from the ULURP application, and members of the body shall be nominated by city council members and community boards whose districts overlap the AAMUP study area with a priority for tenants to be represented. So that one kind of looks back at all the other ones. This is a mechanism to monitor all the other conditions and elements of AAMUP and make sure that they are abided by, adhered to. Next slide. I think that might be it, right? All right. Who am I handing it back to? Well, give everyone a round of applause for the
So, I just want to say that this has been like a long process. There's a lot of hard work and a lot of people. So I'm gonna be the first to put this out there. I move to motion that we support with the conditions that's up there and that was presented, and I make that motion.
Second.
Saunders has moved, Mr. Vicconi has seconded.
Dr. Lazar,
So here's the tough part, discussion. No. You make a motion, it's seconded, and now we have the opportunity for discussion, because, we're like, you can see no questions. So, Dr. Lazar, am I to presume that you have a question or a query? First hand up.
I do.
So, at the meeting where we came up, at the land use meeting where we came up with a lot of these proposals, a lot of really important work was done to develop these. One thing that I had hoped that we would get a chance to return to, but there wasn't, was the issue of the advisory board. It's the very last slide, item 25 on this list. This advisory board of who is going to be overseeing all of this as we move forward. It's worth noting that tenants are very rarely represented on advisory boards that are appointed by elected officials. And it isn't because tenants don't care about the future of the neighborhood. And we absolutely, tenants are the people who are the most directly impacted by rezonings and all of the intense displacement pressures. So I would like to make a proposal for an amendment that I see as friendly to address the issue of the tenant representation on this advisory board. So my proposed amendment would be, whereas tenants are 70% of the New York City population and are the most directly impacted by displacement pressure from rezonings, but are rarely proportionately represented on advisory boards, the AAMUP advisory board should have minimum 70% representation for tenants who have been actively involved in fighting displacement, and small homeowners should be proportionately represented as well.
So there's been a motion made, is there a second? York?
Just to ask Dr. Lord on the amendment, I'd just like to have it on record that the small homeowner is one typically family owner occupied home, so that there's clarity. And since we have a motion on the floor as a whole, I also have a question on the ESP portion.
But I'm still listening for the second. So there's a second, okay, so now we can have discussion, all right? Mr. Cody. Is yours amendment acceptable to your motion, Dr. Lazar?
Oh, yes. Amendment to my proposed amendment?
Yes.
Is Dr. Lazar's amendment accepted?
So we're in the discussion point, so it's been made and seconded.
Now we're discussing it.
Yeah.
We're discussing it. Okay, Katie?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering about the 70%, only because we also want to have small businesses on there, in addition to also homeowners and, industrial businesses. I'm not sure where the 70% comes from, so that's a question. Other than, I definitely agree wholeheartedly that they should be heavily represented proportionally. I just want us to, are we thinking about all of the elements of who should be represented on here when we're putting out 70%? That's the question.
All right, so Katie, thank you. We still have to vote about this change, correct?
No, we can discuss the amendment. The amendment's on the floor. It's been rejected by the motion maker, so we are discussing the amendment in advance of a vote.
Okay, Mr. Bocconi and then Ms. Mitchell.
I share Katie's concern about whether this is practical. I totally agree with the spirit, but I started to think about this in terms of numbers. Let's say this board ends up being, and again, it will be up to the city council members to figure this out, but if the board ends up being, let's just say 20 people, we would need 14 of the 20 people to be tenants, and if we weren't able to find 14 tenants to take those roles, we would end up having to reduce the size of the board until we got down to the level of the tenants we had. It's also possible that since the members will be appointed by community boards 3 and 8 and 2 city council members, if all of them get 5 appointments, there will be some who only can appoint tenants, and that might be less than, they may feel like that's too restrictive, because we need 14.
And I'm going to also add, we're talking about something that's going to be in the future. We are asking for money to support this entity. We have not identified what this entity is actually going to look like. Is it going to be 10 people? Is it going to be 20 people? Is it going to be 30 people? So the concern is that you crowd out emerging issues. So for example, if we actually have a full-fledged green development incubator, right? Do they need to be represented? Will there be manufacturers that are going to be represented? So while the priority to make sure that there is representation by tenants are not the only residents within the community.
Right. I would say that from the conditions that we've called for here, probably a lot affect tenants, but not 70% of them. But just so this is correct, I'd like to try to see if we can get closer to what Dr. Lazar is looking for, and instead of specifying, this doesn't really specify any number the way it's written now, it's just a preference. I would suggest we say we want to target 30% of the members of the board being tenants. So we have something that's a real number on there, but one that I don't think would be so restrictive it would be hard for the nominating bodies to comply with it. So that's a motion.
Wait, now I'm upset. Motion on top of motion. The meeting. Hello? And so Ms. Mitchell? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So sorry.
I have a question. I want to find out, why does it have to be a specific percentage? If it's mostly, do not have a problem with it saying tenants on the larger proportion, but not saying a number. I agree with what Katie has said, that we have to put merchants on, we have to put other businesses on. So I don't think that, I don't agree with saying 70%, or even giving a number, just making sure that it is more tenants. Meaning,
thank you. What we are feeling, first of all, the 70% number isn't a random number. It is the makeup of this district. 70% of us are renters and tenants. What I fail to hear from any of us here is that business owners are tenants. The manufacturers here are tenants. The people who own our businesses here are tenants. The people who are teaching here are tenants. So when we ask for tenants, we're not saying tenants that are simply organized tenants such as myself, for instance. We're asking for tenant representation. Therefore, those tenants who are commercial tenants and residential are going to be advocating for the exact same things that we're speaking about here. So the makeup would actually be very mixed and still very diverse. All of these people are tenants, and we need to realize that. Most of us here are tenants. 30% of this is, 30% of our district is homeowners. Why should this board be made up mainly of homeowners who are a little bit out of touch with the pressures of residential tenants and commercial tenants? Who do you think fixes your car? Do you think he lives at the mechanic shop? No, he goes home to an apartment that he can barely afford in this neighborhood and is feeling not only displacement in his home, is also feeling that displacement in his business. So that is why we're asking for 70% of tenants, and the numbers are so specific.
Ms. Martinelli? I'm sorry. You want me, okay, I'll be quiet.
Hi, I'd like to be just as passionate and, what's the word, ferocious to express that Community Board 8 has many different housing types. And your definition of a tenant is well appreciated, but there are homeowners, there are other housing types, and there should be no unbalance in the ability for us to be a stakeholder when our opinions would like to be considered. So that is why to just say, well, the majority of all of us in this room are tenants. That's not actually
the majority of this board, the majority of this district is tenants.
Well,
we're 70% tenants, 30% homeowners. That is a fact. I didn't make that up. That's given to me by your local government. So what I'm saying to you is that you either own where you live or you rent where you live. Correct. You're either a tenant or you're a homeowner. We have also put in, and that is why Dr. Lazar said, also the proportionate of small homeowners, 1 to 2 family, excuse me,
1 to 3.
excuse me, 1 to 3 family homeowners would also be a part of that 70% number, excuse me, the 30
Yeah, that's right.
number.
So my response was, in regards to your saying, if that is the fact, then I would like it to then be very clear, as our chair of the meeting has said, we're not certain what is the number, what is the funding, that it has to be proportionally,
Right, which
how do I
is
say,
70-30.
considered, so that when there is things to be decided, that everyone who lives here, their opinions for how it affects their living is also included. Because then when you have the votes, it may be just tipped. That's why I want that to be, considered. However you all come up with the formula for the representation, because we're all stakeholders. And it's not to minimize that we have any less of a concern because we happen to own or live in a building that is one of 3. We still live here. We're not.
Debbie, again, point well taken, but we don't want to get stuck on
Got
one
it.
issue. We want there are other hands that
Moving
are up.
forward.
Mr. Meehan.
Moving forward.
So I think a lot of the consternation seems to be coming from the phrasing of this as a minimum of 70%. Would you be amenable to saying a target? Like, so that it's not restricted, but with a goal of representation.
Yeah, I think that would be friendly.
Then I would like to propose a friendly amendment that we modify the amendment as proposed from a minimum of 70% to a target of 70%.
Sarah, if you're accepting of Meehan.
Yes.
Fiora, are you accepting?
Can I add just one more
But you have,
clarification?
you already said but.
Yes, I just wanted to know, I think there is a motion on the floor, a second, various friendly amendments. We're voting on this as a whole. I have a question regarding the EST portion.
No, we're going to vote on, if there are any amendments, we're going to vote on the amendments separately before we get to the big enchilada.
Oh, Katie, all right.
I think to capture what we were talking about, I think it might be helpful to say that plus tenants including also business tenants. I think that when people think tenant homeowner, they're thinking residential, and it's used commonly as a residential reference. So, but I think you're talking about that, I think that's a good point. So why don't maybe we say that, proportional target of, based on proportional representation of tenant, residential, and commercial.
So now we need to go back to Sarah, and then Fiora, and then to Meehan. Are you accepting? Give it your hand up also.
I just wanted to see if something proposed is okay with the motion.
Yeah. Well, I thought this. I asked Katie, was she accepted? Dr. Lazar, and she put a thumb up,
Okay, so what does the new language say in that with that?
So it says what it says there, right? Is it still 25 above me? I can't see it.
Yes, still 25.
So the very last phrase, with a priority for tenants to be represented. How about this? With a target for residential tenants, commercial tenants, and small homeowners of 1 to 3 family units to be represented at the rate of 70%.
Yeah.
Proportional to district makeup.
Proportional to district makeup.
Right.
Yes.
All right, let me type that up. With a target for residential, commercial tenants and small homeowners to proportionally represent the district.
To be represented proportionally.
Represented proportionally. I'm sorry I can't pop this up there, but
Well, I was wondering, can I do that? Should I try and edit
Katie, can you type it live? Yeah, never mind. So again, with a target for residential tenants, commercial tenants, and small homeowners of 1 to 3 family dwellings to be represented proportionally.
I think it's harder than 70%.
Sorry, it's not changing up there, because I'm not up there. So again, with a target for residential tenants, commercial tenants, and small homeowners of 1 to 3 family dwellings to be represented proportionally. So again, we're talking about a community oversight body which has never been granted before. And we just want to make sure that we're giving some guidance to those who are going to be composing this body, what we feel that the composition should be. The language I just read out in the ether, is that acceptable to all of the various motion makers and amenders? Say no if it isn't. All right. To amend 25 to represent that, shall I call the roll, Ms. Muhammad?
Yes.
Aquiya Adu.
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre.
Yes.
Gail Branch Muhammad.
Yes.
Diane Du.
Yes.
Amara Elahi. Benny Fagan.
Yes.
Najani Granville. Mohammed Hassan. Jamel Henderson. Malik Jabati. Safari John King. Francis Langley. Robert Lapointe.
Yes.
Dr. Sarah
Ms.
Lazar.
Langley, we didn't hear. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Langley. Dr. Sarah Lazar.
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado.
Yes.
David Mantell. William Meehan.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yes.
Courtney Morgan. Theo Ortiz Joyner.
Yes.
Tereya Petway. Robert Kuka.
Yes.
Idisa Ramarak. Yaya Raji. Anika Roach. Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth.
Yes.
Brian Saunders.
Yes.
Robin Smith.
Yes.
Meredith Staten is excused. Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Mark Thurton. Mark Thurton?
Abstain.
Thank you, Mark. Esmond Turnbull. Brianna Ua. Gib Viconi.
Yes.
Kimberly Watson.
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn.
Yes.
Robert Witherwax, yes. Deborah Young.
Yes.
The motion passes. 27 in favor, 1 abstention.
Hey.
The condition number 25 has been amended. We still have to approve the conditions. We'll get there.
The entire condition. Okay, again, are there any other questions for I saw that your hand was up about EST, so.
Yeah.
And also,
That would be 21C.
C. Katie, could you go to that slide? Thank you. Plan for a variety of curbside uses, including space for waste containers and loading zones in front of all entrances to large buildings, specifically a loading zone in front of the building to be constructed at 542 Dean Street.
Right. I don't know if this is considered a friendly amendment since I did submit an edit on Wednesday and you shared the other act, the
Yeah.
committee agreed and on it, but my edit was not all entrances. As I stated in my email, there are at least one building that I can think of in this district that has 2 entrances on 2 different streets. And I don't think, I think that the containerization or curb cut should be left to the main address, to the actual address.
I misunderstood the thrust of I thought you were saying it should, where buildings have multiple entrances, they should all be.
No.
I misunderstood that.
You want all changes made.
I would like the amendment or the edit to say that the main entrances correlating with actual address, not in case of the building that I am speaking of, there's an entrance on 2 different streets. So to have containerization on 2 streets in 1 building, I think is a big step.
So you'd like to say, including space for waste containers and loading zones in front of the main entrance to large buildings.
Actual address.
Yeah, Ms. George is pointing out
On
that,
the side, they may not do it on the link. You know, if it's a building on the link together, they may not give you the container on the link, they may do it on that side street.
Well,
Which is still a part of their building.
right, but
That doesn't mean
So then,
at every entrance.
The main,
main entrance is mine.
But I think-
Or the at or near the main entrance.
So if you wanna do the service, we could only be one, say one entrance.
But I think the problem is waste. Because a lot of buildings aren't gonna wanna put the waste containers in front of them.
Right in front of the building.
When you bundle those together, it wouldn't look the main. Would it be okay to say that
So then can you replace, all with the word one?
yeah, that would work if it was one entrance each. It might not work if it was, the loading. I mean, yeah, I think it makes sense, right?
So plan for a variety of curbside uses, including space for waste containers and loading zones in front of one entrance to large buildings.
I second.
Specifically, a loading zone in front of the building to be constructed at 542D. Is that a fair, is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Mr. Baconi seconded. Is there any questions on the motion?
Why is this a concern? I can't see why a super would want to bring waste to multiple different bins rather than just have their one bin right near the. Like, I don't know why we're worried that this is going to be a problem when there's probably going to be just one service entrance.
Just want to make sure.
It's not large, but possibly.
any other questions? No, I was asking another question relative to.
To this,
Yes.
to this, we need to vote on this one.
And then Ms. Watson, you know. I'm gonna wait for
So on 21C, any other questions? Oh, on 21C only. We'll come back to that. Ms. State Hall? Containerization is a separate, I mean, it's coming, right? So we're just saying that the buildings need to plan for it with this prong, really. It's just kind of saying, be mindful of what you're going to do and the impact it's going to have on the community. So please plan for these variety of curbside uses. Any other questions on 21C?
I just want to say, I think this is calling for a plan. It's not prescribing, it doesn't attempt to prescribe every building. It just says, you have to look at things and we need you to make a plan.
All right, I'll call the roll. Akuya Adu?
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre?
Yes.
Gail Branch Mohammed?
Yes.
Diane Duke? Amara Alahi? Benny Fagan? Nishani Granville? Mohammed Hassan? Jamel Henderson? Malik Jabati? Tafari John King? Francis Langley? Actually, Dr. now. Robert Lapointe?
Yes.
Dr. Sarah Lazar?
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado?
Yes.
David Mantell? William Meehan?
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell?
Yes.
Courtney Morgan? Theo Ortiz-Joyner? Tereya Petway? Robert Kuka?
Yes.
Dr. Khadija Ramarak? Anika Roach? Connor Ross?
Yes.
Ezra Roth?
Yes.
Brian Saunders?
Yes.
Robin Smith? Katie Taylor?
Yes.
Dana Thompson? Mark Thurton?
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull? Brianna Ua? Kip Vaconi? Kimberly Watson? Sharon Wedderburn?
Yes.
Robert Witherwax, yes. Deborah Young?
Yes.
The motion passes, 26 in favor. No objections, no abstentions.
Kim Watson, and again, we're trying to move on, we want to address all the issues, we're keeping time in mind. And Kim, you had your hand up for a while.
I'm gonna wait until we get open space.
Well, we're gonna do open space, yes.
I think my concern is just around the reality that Parks has no funding really. It's the work that's been in the last 2
that was certainly something that was discussed. And in the short time that we had and the 5 or 6 hours that we spent on it, I don't think we got to a mechanism on that. But I'd be happy to talk about it.
I'd like to I'd like to make a suggestion that you could address this problem. It starts any new open spaces should be parks. I would propose we insert funded through, if on private property, I'm trying to, basically the idea is if you created one of these, we're talking about creating something new out of private property, it should be converted to a park, not just transferred by deed to the park, but also the building owner, if we're coupling it with some kind of benefit, the building owner should be assessed as part of his property tax with the amount of money necessary to pay for the upkeep. The park should get, that should be coming off of his tax bill and go into parks. So maybe we say any new open spaces should be parks, funded by tax assessments to any property that has been converted from private ownership. And that way, if that happens, we have a source of funding so it can be maintained.
So let me read that back, if I may, Gail. Any new open spaces should be parks, comma, funded by tax assessments to any property that has been converted to private ownership, from private ownership, comma, or if funded and owned privately, and keep going on from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if there's any property that gets taken to create a park from scratch, the funding mechanism would be a tax assessment on that property.
And again, are you all right with that?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Bingham?
I don't understand the mechanism by which any developer would choose to do that. They choose to give up land and now they have a tax assessment because of it? That feels like a poison pill. No, I understand. I'd love for the parks to be funded, but it seems like you're just creating a mechanism for none of these open spaces to be turned into parks at all.
Yeah.
So this, I don't blame you for questioning this. This is a little complicated, and it's because the land use committee passed a condition and the ESD committee passed a condition that somewhat overlap. The land use committee felt very strongly that these kinds of POPs, the privately owned public spaces, don't work very well. That usually they're not always good public spaces. They're not conceived. They're conceived to be spaces that the private owners like, but might not work that well for the community. So that was the primary reason that the land use committee asked to have that open space incentive removed from zoning. The ESC committee looked at it a little bit different and said, well, what we really want are parks. We don't want a privately owned public space. We didn't reconcile the middle of those. It's possible there might be some middle ground that says the open space incentive might be okay if we actually turn that space into a park. But if we did that, we would still want it to be funded by the building owner because he got an incentive. He now got a bigger building, and so he should actually be paying the Parks Department for the upkeep. He shouldn't get an incentive bonus and then all of a sudden the Parks Department gets an expense. He should be covering the expense.
I think that squares the circle, but without the incentive,
Okay, so this is something that
The issue that I'm seeing right now is that if another park is added, but there's no guarantee in this language that there will be open spaces in AAMUP at all. So this is actually a public health crisis that's going on, which is too much housing density without any guarantee for open space, which is something that all of these community board meetings have been talking about for over 10 years, is that we need parks in this area of AAMUP itself. And I don't see any language at all in any of the documents, and I looked at some of the presentations that have been coming up, because sadly I didn't attend all the meetings, which I'm sure were very entertaining. But at this point, it's like all these documents, everybody at every city council meeting, we're all talking about, the need to green up the neighborhood, and there's no guarantee that there will be any open spaces at all on any of the maps at this point. And it's really concerning because it truly is a public health issue at this point.
Before we get this Yes.
I actually want to directly talk about that point. So there are actually 3 community gardens within the AAMUP zone: the Walt Del Chamel Community Garden, the Bergen Street Community Garden on Maria Nostrum, and the Westbrook Community Garden. Just kind of within that 3-space zone. And really what I wanted to talk about is, it just kind of wraps up into the open space sort of zone there. Like, what is the kind of engagement that is going to be sort of happening with this, with AAMUP and the 3 community gardens within it? I'm sorry if I'm like adding on, but I just did want to address that there are 3 green zones kind of within this region that I wanted to kind of add, like, mention.
We live right in the corner
Can
of.
you just go one slide forward? So one of our points is number C here, that all existing parks and gardens, right? Specifically what you're talking about right there, the community gardens, and any open spaces that do exist, and we agree. There's a paucity, a dearth, a lack of great public spaces in here. Whether public or private will be protected from future development. So that is one of our problems. Keep what little we have.
Yeah.
So to what Mr. Piccone and Mr. Meehan are arguing about here too is like, how do we conjure up more space? Forget even funding it. Where do we get it from? One of the trade-offs was a zoning bonus to create a park, a public accessible open space. That has a lot of issues with it. And we just didn't love it as a group that got together. So I'm with you entirely, but where do we do it?
You gotta get creative. It's basically Pacific, Dean, and Bergen Street, between Grand and Franklin. When I moved there 12 years ago, there were a lot of vacant lots. And those lots used to be places with cats, there were feral animals, there were places that were play, there was sunlight. So all of these environmental studies that show that there's been a lot of shadows, we are living under shadows right now. And there will be more shadows if the entire area is just one ruler of 17-story buildings. It's insane. So it's Pacific, Dean, and Bergen. We need to try to figure out how to put together land trusts that are public and private and are super duper creative in terms of trying to figure out how to get the city to buy a Muncie bus parking lot or something else that really, truly must be something along the lines of like a Stroud Park where there's multi-generational, multi-purpose opportunities for air and light. And this idea of having this sort of shading off pieces of developers' properties would be great if it were a walking path with wildflowers and bees and all of these things that have been thrown out at community board meetings but haven't actually been put into documentation at all. All these listening circles of we want to have vertical gardens, we want to grow our own food. Where is this in these actual documents?
So what I would like to suggest, and this is probably not going to make you completely happy, but it could actually be done. I think the idea of the city going out and acquiring private property in the rezoning area would be phenomenally expensive. I think that the city instead is going to want to effectively pay for that private property by giving a development incentive to the owner of the property rather than having to buy the whole thing free and clear at the value of the buildable FAR of the 17-story building. So what I would like to suggest, even though it's not what the land use committee voted on, the land use committee didn't consider this option to transfer the plaza space, if you will, to the Parks Department. So I would like to say that we consider modifying to say the open space incentive is modified such that plaza area shall be transferred to the Parks Department, and the transferor will be assessed an annual tax that is sufficient for the Parks Department to maintain it. So we're actually saying this land should be parks, it will be a park, it will be maintained by the Parks Department, and the building owner will pay them for it.
I don't think it matters how it's paid for, but the issue is that.
Well, it matters to the property.
I understand, but I'm just saying that at this point, yes, of course it does, but I'm just saying, practically speaking, there needs to be a minimum number of square footage that is public park that's saved as part of a neighborhood plan. Just because we were talking to MCOM years ago, and the idea was a comprehensive plan to make sure that there's some kind of, red line of how much space gets to be reserved as not buildable.
No, I'm sorry. That was not one of MCRON's goals. I understand its interest. I understand why it's an interest. But just the simple fact of all of that area being private property makes it very difficult to assemble a large park. that has not been a focus of the community board's enterprise plan. But I think to do what you're saying, we can get closer to there by modifying the open space incentive, and so when one of those incentives is chosen, the space that's freed for public access is a park, and the building owner has to pay an assessment to maintain it. That way you get your park. You can't, we're not going to be able to force the city to create parks because the land is private. And you can imagine if there was actually an ability to pass a resolution that would be binding on the city to create parks, you can imagine what the price of the land would become. The building owners would have to be forced to pay it. It would be incalculable. So I think this is the closest we can get, and I'd suggest if we want to go that way, I'd offer it as an amendment that plazas created under the sorry, we disappeared that one.
23A.
Can you bring that back, please? Plazas created as a function of the open space incentive will be transferred to the Parks Department, and the property owner will be assessed an annual tax sufficient for their maintenance.
Slow down there, Chief. And first of all, one question to you. Are you suggesting that this open space incentive, right, this is the zoning bonus, that is part of the current AAMUP plan? So you're reintroducing that even though...
I am, because this was the problem, we kind of discussed trying to reconcile these two conditions, one from the land use and one from the ESP. I think the big objection people had in land use is that they pointed to all these examples of pops around the city that were kind of failures and they didn't like. But this is a way to make it a park and have some civic responsibility and accountability.
So just to rephrase your motion, that to amend 23A, any plazas created under the open space incentive will become parks property and will be funded by tax assessments on the development.
Yes.
Annual tax assessments on the development.
But I don't know if anyone wants to second it.
I have a quick question.
Okay, and I would just like to go back to the gentleman that asked a question about 23C, and there was a response that the community gardens would be protected, and I want to know if you were satisfied with that response.
Yeah, definitely. But also, just to add on, I just wanted to know, like, the gardens are protected, yes, but I wanted to know, like,
Can you please speak up?
my bad. I understand that the gardens are protected, but I wanted to understand, like, how they're being supported. If they're being
As
supported.
everyone said tonight, the Parks Department budget is pitiful. And if there's any council members in the House, I would hope that that's... Really? If anybody is listening, yeah, I mean, 1% for parks shouldn't be controversial. Giv, are you withdrawing your 23B amendment?
Okay, and then...
Yes, I think the solution is the 23A amendment, and Ms. Mitchell seconded.
Thank you.
Do we need a second?
Okay, 1 minute for Councilman Hudson had something to say.
Well, I was just going to address that comment specifically and say the 1% for parks has never been an issue for the council. In fact, we fight every year to increase the budget for the Parks Department. It's the mayor that continues to not adequately fund the Parks Department and many other cities.
Thank you. You have something to say?
No, I wanted to, if she had, the young lady had a question.
I know, I thought you had a question. Next would be Linda.
Okay, if you need a second, let me know. I'm
Oh,
ready.
in a second.
Oh, you're in a second. Got it.
All right, Linda.
I just want to clarify to the people who were not at all the committee meetings, if you could just clarify what the open space incentive is, because it was my understanding that people felt it's an extra 3 stories on the building. So you can build higher if you put in one of these open spaces. And in the committee, the discussion was more along the lines, these open spaces aren't maintained well and it's not worth a taller building. So just be clear that when this modification comes in, the incentive is taller.
DCP, I think it's a 2-story height bonus for the open space incentive.
Yeah, it's not 2 to 3 stories, it's not even the...
Okay, so it could be 3 stories.
Yeah, so it's in exchange for a 20% increase. So the 20% increase is the bonus.
this is great. This is really great because this is actually exactly the type of issue that people should have a chance to vote on. Do you want, is the open space important to you, and are you willing to trade for this taller building? And this is an important issue. People could certainly feel differently about it, but since it's been moved and seconded, we get a chance to all vote.
Could we repeat?
And before we get to Puka and the second, we have Ms. Walcott that has a... You have a question on open space?
Public use and not just maybe people that live in those buildings, and it's open to the general public.
Park,
It'll be a park.
in the basic meaning of that.
But I think it's important that that's added.
Well, it is a park. It will be a park.
Big public park.
But we have buildings that have made it. Yes.
Okay. So I'm sorry to just keep going back to the original DCP proposal is for the only lots along Atlantic Avenue, if I understood it.
Correct.
So this bonus is only for Atlantic Avenue facing lots that are R9A equivalent areas. So what does that do for the Pacific, the Dean, the Bergen developments?
There is this option there.
I just want to make sure that's clear to everybody.
Are we ready for Puka?
We
Would
need to
someone
vote.
make a motion?
It's my, I thought it was seconded already. Okay, so that's all I wanted to do. Thank you.
There's a hand up. Okay. Tracy.
Okay, we're going to vote soon.
There's a hand up.
As I recall,
This is
there
the
is
our last question, Eric. Go.
as I recall, there is a strong aversion to giving that 20% bonus of height for the space. So if we're going to reintroduce this, maybe we adjust the percentage that they're given. How about 10%? It's like if you're going to give them a height bonus for a park, why are we going to? We were very averse to the whole thing that was proposed. So why, if they give us a park, or if the landowner gives it.
The smaller that you make the incentive, the less likely you'll get the park. My guess is that the folks at DCP created this incentive with economics in mind, thinking that at least some property owners would take it. So I really think the best way to deal with this is just to have a vote, and people can decide what they want to do. I mean,
DCP, can you kind of explain, maybe you want to come forward?
But none of these people are at the committee meetings. They don't know all of this stuff, you know?
Sure. So the motion on the floor is to amend 23A to read as follows. Any plazas created under the open space incentive will become parks property and will be funded by annual tax assessments on the developments, and to address Ms. Walcott, will become publicly accessible parks property.
or public parks.
Will become public parks.
Can we extend that to include Pacific Dean and Bergen
And then I
somehow?
do want to.
So that wasn't the open space initiative incentive.
How do we ensure that there's open space on Pacific Dean and Bergen?
You're gonna have to buy those plots.
We have an amendment on the floor. Is there an offer to amend the amendment from a board member?
No, please don't.
Right,
All right, so we'll call the roll. All right, so to leave it, so just for the open space initiative incentive, excuse me, on Atlantic Avenue, any plazas created under the open space incentive will become public parks and will be funded by annual tax assessments on the developments. Akuya Adu.
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre.
Yes, hello?
Gail French Mohammed.
Yes.
Did I miss Ms. Alexis?
No, she said yes.
She said yes, I apologize. Diane Duke.
Yes.
Omar Elahi. Benny Fagan. Mohammed Hassan. Jamel Henderson. Malik Jabati. Tafari John King. Francis Langley.
Yes.
Robert Lapointe?
Yes.
Dr. Sarah Lazar?
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado?
Yes.
William Meehan?
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell?
Yes.
Pure Ortiz Joyner? Robert Puka?
Yes.
Annika Roach? Connor Ross?
Yes.
Ezra Roth?
Yes.
Brian Saunders? I'm sorry, you're saying Brian?
Yes, hello?
Robin Smith? Katie Taylor?
Yes.
Dana Thompson? Abstain. Mark Thurton? Esmond Turnbull? Gib Baconi? Kimberly Watson?
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn?
Yes.
Robert Witherwax, yes. Deborah Young?
Yes.
The motion passes, 23 in favor, 3 abstentions. Controversial after all?
There's a question.
Yeah, I have a question about number 15.
Speak up in my
Oh, sure. For number 15, about the impact study, if we can somehow include that the quantitative data from that be added to the Open NYC data portal after it's generated, so we can all see it.
Could you just repeat that, please?
So I guess the amendment would be, and mandate that the quantitative, I guess, and qualitative data, I don't know how you, be added to the Open NYC data portal.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. We need a board member to make the motion. Mr. Meehan?
I'd like to move that we amend item 15 to read that all data as a result of the study will be published on the New York City, is it Open Data Dashboard?
So just where it says qualitative data, comma, all of which will be published on NYC Open Data Dashboard portal, what did we say, portal? Portal. Will be, okay,
It's called NYC Open Data.
thank you. So Mr. Meehan made the motion, I heard Ms. Mitchell. Any questions on the motion? Call the roll. Aquia Adu. Sharon Alexis Pierre. Gail Branch Muhammad.
Yes.
Diane Duke. Mohammed Hassan. Tafari John King. Francis Langley. Robert Lapointe. Dr. Sarah Lazar. Lisa Maldonado. William Meehan.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell. Pio Ortiz Joyner. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth.
Yes.
Brian Saunders. Robin Smith. Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Mark Thurton.
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull. Gib Baconi. Kimberly Watson. Sharon Wedderburn.
Yes.
Robert Witherwax, yes. Deborah Young.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 27 in favor.
Lisa?
I have a question just going back to open data. Did we get rid of the requirement that we want to have the incentive or not? The incentive is still on.
No, we just voted to restore the incentive. That's what that motion
I
was.
thought we voted to charge the.
Right, to restore the incentive, so if a developer wants to go up another story, they can if they provide a space. But now we're saying that space has to become parks property, as opposed to publicly accessible open space.
Okay, I was unclear on who said that. I thought it was two different things. That we have to get rid of it and then did it all together.
Yeah, which provides the condition.
While we have a quorum, we'd like to make sure that we vote on the entire package. So if there are any other questions, we ask them to come online. If not, we'd like to have a motion for the entire package.
So we still have to vote on that motion?
We voted to amend 15, 23, 21, and 25. Are there any other items? Somebody said 9 at one point. Ms. Smith.
Okay. Ms. Smith? Workforce development program and relocating in the shelter. That's what the proposal. That's what the
Number 9, will the workforce development program be located in the Bedford Atlantic Armory? And the answer is yes on the proposal.
Is the issue? Okay, and your issue is?
My issue is a lot of the programs on the team like they're more digital, but it's open to everybody. And I'm uncomfortable with women and young women going to mental. That's just my personal feeling.
Will it be a men's shelter?
I don't know if we can assume the entrance will be through the men's shelter.
Yeah, but seeing this is basically itself because there are, she was right, there are, I'm sorry, you can jump in.
That would be different now.
I think the idea is to model, there's a shelter in Parksville, I don't remember the name there, but it's a women's, I believe it's a women's shelter in Parksville, where they have a gym. They have a gym, a fitness center, so there's a shelter portion, there's a separate entrance, and then the gym, there's another entrance. So I think the idea is to create 2 separate entrances so that the gym is, I have. Yeah, but I think the idea is to model it after the shelter in Parksville, where there's 2 separate entrances, separate everything.
I mean, they've DCP has cited that specific building as an underused resource. So, right, all the cards are on the table for what that building becomes right now.
Mimi?
The name before I speak, they're going to redo it, like tear it down and redo something.
They're not gonna tear it down,
No, activities.
Sure, okay, so then yes, I have to agree with, this woman here. I know for someone who walks by there a lot, it's all basically men hanging out within the entire.
It's a men's assessment shelter. It's underused for the size of the building. It only has 350 men. It can hold many more people than that. So there is space to do other things in that.
No, absolutely, but in terms of having, if she's speaking about workforce development, and as a female, you're coming into that space, and there's just men hanging out all, like, it's very uncomfortable, and it does feel unsafe, and that is, I think, a very valid consideration that I didn't overlook, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yes. What? Yes, there's a hand up. Yes.
I live practically across the street from there. I've never had an incident. But I can understand why you feel the way you do. But lived there for 20 years, never had an incident. Always speak to them. They speak to me.
Are you the lady that cooks at the corner?
No, but I know them too. But I know them too.
Dr. Rizal.
Just because they're homeless doesn't mean they're criminals.
I would like to stick with the shelter issues. Any other comment about the shelter issue that Ms. Smith has just brought up?
Can you recap it, because you couldn't hear what she said?
Her concern was that it's a men's shelter, and she was concerned about females entering a men's shelter.
As a career center.
As a work site.
Yep.
Work development site. Luca, you have a comment?
There's many entrances to that building. No one's going to be, you can't enter to the front entrance because it leads directly to security and, so it's not going to be the front entrance.
Is there a way to address that in the recommendation that we have? Cheryl?
Is there a way that a preference can be given to some of the homeless men that are capable and able to attend this program?
Exactly.
So that is part of
That's a
the
good point.
proposal from SBS. That's part of the proposal from SBS. That's why we
So, I mean, we could amend number 9 to reflect both of these points, to say that, one, put it in black and white, that preference would be given to men whose services are serviced by the shelter, and that safety and gender equity will be paramount in the operation.
Is that acceptable?
What did I just
You
say?
could give them apartments, that would solve the problem too.
Priority selection, so the last section, the last sentence, is this on slide 9? One moment. Program selection shall prioritize residents of community boards 2, 3, and 8, specifically former clients of this,
Including.
especially,
Well,
how do I say somebody who uses the
The
shelter
Bedford
services?
Atlantic shelter is an assessment shelter,
Oh,
so
right.
that's their first, their second stop. There's an
Specifically the
assessment for
homeless
30 days,
and
and then they go to another.
With concerns for safety and gender equity.
That's what it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be a 30-day assessment. They're supposed to be assessed for 30 days and move to another shelter. That's the model. To assess their needs for 30 days.
Yeah, but keeping this full there. We have
So program selection shall prioritize residents of community boards 2, 3, and 8, specifically the homeless, and operations shall emphasize safety and gender equity.
So moved.
On the motion, is there a second?
Second.
I heard Ms. Sure.
we have a roll call.
So this is AAMUP number 9. Aquia Adu. Sharon Alexis Pierre.
Yes.
Gail Branch Muhammad.
Yes.
Diane Duke. Is Mohammed Hassan. Tafari John King.
Yes.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Robert Lapointe.
Yes.
Sarah Lazar.
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado.
Yes.
William Meehan.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yes.
Fior Ortiz Joyner.
Yes.
Robert Buca.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth.
Yes.
Brian Saunders.
Yes.
Robin Smith.
Yes.
Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Mark Thurton.
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull. Gib Vaconi.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Turnbull, did I miss? Gib Vaconi, yes. Kimberly Watson. Sharon Wedderburn.
Yes.
Robert Wigglewacks, yes. Deborah Young.
Yes.
The motion passes 26 in favor unanimously. Again, if there's anybody else who has motions to propose, come forward and make yourself known. Come forward and make yourself known.
Dr. Lazar, please come forward.
All right. So I guess this is a point of information to start off. This overall motion that's on the floor right now, is it just about the conditions, and then are we going to be voting after that on if the overall reaction of our community is yes or no?
Yes.
That's
And that's
that
why
one.
we're trying to get to that.
That's not so. The motion is to approve with conditions. So we are actually voting, we're modifying conditions now as
So
amendment.
vote on this plan, so vote on,
But
already,
the-
vote on the
the-
25
the-
minutes.
The overall,
The DCP plan and the conditions.
The overall motion Mr. Saunders made is to approve it with these conditions. And that's why we're debating the conditions now.
Okay, so with that clarified, thank you. So I just have a concern that I want to put out there, which is that we do conditional votes all the time in Community Board 8, and so conditional votes would be yes to all this if you do X, Y, Z, and then the conditional no is no to all of this unless you do X, Y, and Z. And functionally, we all kind of know that it means the same thing. It means, well, no.
No.
I mean, it all means we want you to do X, Y, and Z, but there are different ways to phrase it. And if I had been making the motion, I would have preferred that it be phrased as no, unless you do X, Y, Z, because I believe it would send a stronger message to our council member who's here about how seriously we take all of these conditions that we have worked so hard to try to draft together. We see many times that lazier journalists just kind of ignore the conditions and it just turns into a headline, community board voted yes. And then the other stuff can fall by the wayside. And we care enough about all of these conditions that we don't want that to happen. So I don't know if the motion maker would be interested in changing the phrasing of it or not, but I'm putting that thought out there into everybody's head. If it remains the same as yes, if, I don't know if I would be able to vote for it.
There's a motion on the floor. It's just a point of information. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and that goes to Brian as the person that made the motion.
So your question was, you want to change it to no, not condition?
Much. My God.
This is our last opportunity, yeah, so if we don't, then we don't have, less than 30 days as well.
Well, and I don't think that we should start with a negative.
Yeah. Sarah, can I ask you a question?
The conditions would still be part
Sarah.
of all of this. It's still, unless you do X, Y, Z.
But the press would be reductionist the other way around too. Community Board 8 votes no. Right, we saw exactly that play out in the New York Times this past month. Right, so it's not a concern one way or another to me.
Okay, again, William, if you have something you'd like to say, again, we're on time.
Oh. So, I feel a little uncomfortable with some of the concrete numbers in terms of funding, how we're only asking for a 5-year commitment of $3 million annually for tenants and people to stay in their homes, but then economic development is asking for $20 million a year for businesses. So I would like to propose an amendment that we strike from numbers, number 11, that at numbers 11 and 12, just with an annual contribution of $10 million. Because as I understand it, the $3 million was a concrete thing that DCP was already promising, but the business and development stuff is, no?
No.
Okay.
How about we look at 7? Do you want to expand on
Excuse me,
7?
Katie,
I'm just going to have fees and
Councilmember Hudson.
Thank you. I was just going to address the point about a yes vote with conditions versus a no vote with conditions. The point that we're at in the process is obviously at the community board, we still have a public hearing with the borough president. The borough president will then put out his recommendation, probably and very likely with conditions, and then it comes to the city council. It's at the point when it comes to the city council that we then negotiate with the administration and with city planning and the mayor's office, all of these items. And so it provides more leverage, and I also just want to be very clear, voting no with conditions is essentially saying unless you do every single one of these things that's laid out, we don't want anything to happen. And so this rezoning has only come about because this community board specifically for 15 years roughly has been asking for this rezoning. If the vote is yes with conditions, it's saying yes, generally we approve this rezoning, but we would really like to see these things happen. This is the list of items that I then take to the administration and say, this is what my community has asked for, and I can tell you now, obviously all of these things are not possible. But the point is, you throw everything at the wall, you can't get anything that you don't ask for. And so, Councilmember Ose and I will have leverage to say, the community wants this, we want to get to a yes, but we are not going to get to a yes in the council unless we can see as much of this as possible with any other, points of agreement that might come up from the council side. So, just wanted to clarify.
Can we,
Just 1 second.
We have to go, we gotta go.
Okay, before you. All right, Katie.
I think that's great. Thank you for clarifying all that for us on strategy. I want to just get back to that last point about the discrepancy of number of years that we're putting for how aggressive we're being in some of these. I think that's a good point that on the tenant protection number 7 on want to say a 10-year commitment here?
I mean, one other suggestion, if I may, is maybe make all of the year commitments uniform across the board. So if some are 3, some are 5, some are 10, put the number and make them all the same number.
And
Make
so
sure
everything else is
it has a year on it.
So,
Okay.
am I hearing, sorry, go.
Just quick.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make another motion.
Oh, you're not gonna be the last.
One second,
Again,
one
you
line,
have to-
one
you
line.
have 1 minute.
Councilwoman,
Yes.
can you clarify, so when they keep putting out the governor, the mayor, your city council, Ms. Adams, has already decided that it's the city of yes, that they want that. This is not, that is not it.
Yes.
You were not there yet. This is part of all the people who work.
Debbie? Oh, I'm waiting.
Am I hearing a member make a motion to uniform all of the days?
Everything to 10 years.
10 years and 10 million annually.
Okay.
You two find it out.
All right. Mimi, you said to win. Okay.
So I see there are 3 places where this occurs. Correct me if there's anything else. Number 7, we're going to make 10 years for 10 million annually. And then we're going to leave number 11 and number 12 alone. They're both 10 years for 10 million annually. And yeah, 14 is different.
And when
And
there's
that's
3
it.
years, you're making it 10 also.
Where do you see that, Kevin?
Where was the 3 years?
Agreement, got it. Yeah, so it's basically editing number 7. Okay.
All right.
Motion by,
Okay. There are 2 hands up. The woman in the back first, and then Linda, and then that will be it. I take a vote.
Hi, I just want to make a recommendation for the tenant protection, that you add that they give you data of who they represented and the outcomes. Because if you're going to allocate that type of money for funding for people in your community, they need to show you what they did. Because quite often, we have many people that are going to court right now that are not getting representation.
so is number 7 still up there? All right, so the city makes, again, presuming it's okay with Mimi. Okay, Mimi. The city makes a 10-year commitment of $10 million annually to fund free representation to tenants in Community Aid District affirmative and offensive cases, allocating to funding to organizations like those with the condition that they track and report to the, what's the thing we call in number 25? The oversight body.
All right, Linda, and then
Annually.
we're going to take control.
I had a very quick question about the Lowry Triangle area and the Underhill Plaza. We had talked in, I don't know what slide it is, I'm sorry. We had talked,
You have to give us a number.
I don't have the,
And is it related to what we are discussing now? If not,
What
let's
do-
keep it
The
moving.
amendment to number 7, tenant protection.
oh, no, it's not.
So they just roll?
Yes.
Akuya Adu.
I thought they were
Sharon
very-
Alexis Kia.
Which one is Bishop
Gail
Lowry?
Bridge Muhammad.
Yes.
Which
Diane
one is
Duke.
Bishop Lowry?
Muhammad Hassan. Kafara John King. Francis Langley. Robert LaPointe. Sarah Lazar. Lisa Maldonado. William Mia. Nina Mitchell. Fiora Ortiz Joyner. Robert Kuka.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth. Brian Saunders. Robin Smith. Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Mark Thurman.
Yes.
Esmond Turnbull. Gib Piconi. Kimberly Watson. Sharon Wedderburn. Robert Wiederwax, yes. Deborah Young.
I know where it is.
Okay. Motion passes, 26 in favor. Nobody leave. Lock the doors.
Linda?
I'm going to be very, very quick. I'm trying to find the slide. There was one to improve 2 parks, and one of them is Bishop Lowry Triangle and Underhill Plaza. We had talked in committee about making sure the people who, because that's a very unique space in that it abuts right up against people's front doors.
Katie, slide 23B, please.
Thank you. So we had talked in committee about getting the input of the residents who live on that block and the 3 businesses there. Wonder if anybody.
Second sentence of 23B.
23. That's C. Outreach into
Approval of any
adjacent
expansions or renovations to existing open spaces.
and
Should
notice.
include community board review and outreach and notice to adjacent residents and businesses.
I'm wondering if we can tweak that a bit just to make it that not just notice to them that it's happening, but get their input as to how this space is impacting their day-to-day lives and businesses.
Outreach and notice, that's the.
Can't you say include community board review and input from outreach and notice? Just seems like you're going to get told after it's done.
No, that's what we do, that's predicate notice, that's, you gotta have a, you know, that's the same
Okay, as
thing
long
we
as
do with
that's
SLA.
as long as that's clear. And then I had another question about conflicts. I know it's not in any of this, but in the points of agreement, there was a commitment for $300,000 a year for 10 years to community partners who operate existing commercial full closure open spaces. And the only one I know of in that AAMUP area is the Vanderbilt.
Is this related?
This is related. Yes, it is. This is related because I'm wondering if that conflicts out people from the PHNDC from voting.
This
If
was
they're-
not a condition that came to fruition based on the work of the ESD committee. This was a notion that was floating around that derived out of the working group that was not adopted by us.
But the working group was the PHNDC, right?
The working group was Councilmember Hudson's and Osei's AAMUP steering committee working groups.
Okay.
The whole community engagement.
The whole community engagement.
Support for open streets appeared.
No, I'm not trying to talk about Open Street. I'm just saying that's $3 million. No, I'm not trying to talk about open
It
streets.
wasn't, we could have brought it forward.
No. I'm not trying to talk about open streets at all. It's not relevant.
But you're
And
talking about the $300,000
I'm
fund.
saying
I know what you're talking about.
the PHNDC, if it goes through, even though it's not here, it is part of the negotiations because it hasn't been removed and it is a point of agreement marked commitment in the documents, right? So the PHNDC would stand to gain $3 million, right? So
Document is a commitment.
as long as we're all clear that that's not part of AAMUP, then
I think everyone should be clear. If not, there's some clarity.
it feels like, it should be mentioned.
Okay, all right. Can we move on now? It's 9:03, we have 27 minutes, and there are other reports that have to be
Both themselves some money.
here.
So I would call Street this question, which needs to be voted on the overall motion.
They're going to vote now.
Next about that.
I'm moving that we propose further amendments and vote on the.
Oh, okay, all right, understood. Okay, William Meehan, make the motion.
It's a procedural
To
motion.
proceed.
It's a procedural motion that we propose amendments to the main motion and take a vote.
On Brian's,
On the overall, on Brian's
right, on
motion.
Brian's initial
Yes,
motion.
with the amendments that have been made and voted on.
And the second of that came from?
From
Your second gives motion back.
To
Go back to it.
Right, to go back to Brian's initial.
Yeah, we often vote on it and see if a majority wants to vote to take and vote on any motion. We have to.
Okay.
I'm asking for a vote before us today. The majority of the body has to agree, and then we'll vote on
procedural motion, so we could start with a show of hands.
Please. And before we move a quorum.
Yes, before we lose the quorum, exactly.
All right. So there's a motion to
Proceed.
proceed.
To call the previous question, close debate on, close further amendments and vote on the main
Okay.
motion.
And we have second, and can you call?
Sure. Akuya Aju.
Yes.
Sharon Alexis Pierre. Gail Branch Mohammed.
Yes.
Diane Duke.
Yes.
Mohammed Hassan. Tafari John Kay. Francis Langley. Robert Lapointe. Dr. Sarah Lazar. Lisa Maldonado. William Meehan. Mimi Mitchell. Theodore Ortiz Joyner. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth.
Yes.
Brian Saunders.
Yes.
Robin Smith. Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Mark Thurton.
Yes.
Desmond Turnbull. Gib McConey.
Yes.
Kimberly Watson. Sharon Wedderburn.
Yes.
Robert Witherwax. Yes. Deborah Young.
Yes.
Motion passes, 26 in favor, debate is closed.
Okay, so now is the vote
Now we take the vote
for
on the main motion.
Brian's original. And Brian, do you mind restating your motion?
Yeah. So going back to what?
8 o'clock.
7:30.
In support of the amendments that were made and on the conditions that we have and move forward, I support it. And let's call the vote. Who seconded that?
Second. Now we close the debate. There aren't
No, no debate.
This was a previous motion.
we called the previous. We called it.
No more.
Please call before people leave you with the out.
That was part of it.
Okay.
This is to approve the DCP proposals for AMUP with our conditions as amended. Yes, exactly, as the council member would. Shall I? Want to bang the gavel, Gail? Just, all right. Akuya Aju. Sharon Alexis Pierre. Gail Branch Mohammed.
Yes.
Diane Duke.
Yes.
Mohammed Hassan. Tafari John King.
Yes.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Robert Lapointe.
Yes.
Sarah Lazar.
Yes.
Lisa Maldonado. William Meehan.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yep.
Theodore Ortiz Joyner. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Ezra Roth.
Yes.
Brian Saunders.
Yes.
Robin Smith. Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Sorry, Robin. Dana Thompson. Mark Thurton.
Yes.
Gib McConey.
Yes.
Kimberly Watson.
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn.
Yes.
Robert Witherwax, yes. Deborah Young.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
In the interest of time, we're going to move down to elected official public comment. Assembly, council member Hudson. Is there anything that you'd like to say?
Thank you. This is an exciting point in the process, and again, it's certainly not the end. There will be more opportunity for public input, public comment, again, at the Borough President's hearing, which I don't know the date for that, but now that this is done, then do you know the date? Of January? So January 15th. So if there's anything that anyone wants to bring up again in another public forum, that's the opportunity to do so on January 15th. But we wouldn't be here without quite literally and specifically Community Board 8. So really this is the labor of love that you all have put forth. So I'm just excited to be moving through the process.
Mr. Ross, would you like to, again, succinctly?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I just have two announcements. I don't know if everyone knows, but Congresswoman has now been voted. She's the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. So that is not too many people get to that position in their careers in Congress. One of her key things that she's going to be focusing on is education. Also, wanted to let everyone know we're going to be having our annual job fair. I believe the communications did come through Community Board 8, and it will be at City Tech. It will be at City Tech. We are going to be having workshops on resume writing, on accessing DCATs, on accessing jobs in the Department of DOL, Department of Labor. And there will be other workshops as well. We're right now getting all the people involved and making sure that people know about this event. If you know someone that needs a job, this could be their Christmas present. This could be their Christmas present. So 2 things I ask is that you keep our member in prayer, because it's not going to be an easy task. And you know what's going on in DC. And she has your hearts, and she is praying, and she's working for you guys as much as she can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other elected official and/or representative? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamisha Thompson. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff for Councilmember Mealy. I sent the members send her greetings. I have just 3 events that the member is going to be doing coming up tomorrow. I left up these flyers along with District Leader Anthony Jones. They're going to be doing a Christmas celebration from 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. at 1086 Myrtle Avenue at the Event House. It's free. They said just bring love and have fun. Next Saturday is the members' monthly community advisory board meeting taking place at our district office at 400 Rockaway Avenue from 11 a.m. to 12:30. And then immediately following at 1 p.m., the members are going to be having her Christmas toy giveaway from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So come out, have fun with us, and everyone enjoy your holiday.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other announcements? Public comments? Okay, if you can get, we can do committee reports if you do it in 1 minute apiece.
I can do the EST right now. We're not having a December meeting.
Okay. Economic development?
Economic development, I just want to say thank you again to all the committee members for the hard work that you did. Enjoy your holidays and Happy New Year.
Health and Human Services, Parks, Youth and Education.
Just real quick, we met on December 4th. We're working now in subcommittees to kind of assess, because it came up in our participatory budget, that we need more after-school programming, but we want to kind of find out what after-schools currently exist and how well attended they are. So we're doing that assessment. Based on attendance, we'll do some outreach in the community to our youth to get them to engage more in the after-school programs. Our member, Cody Israel, who's up there, has worked with the Friends of Borough Park to see if we can install a Kanara to represent Kwanzaa. During the season, we have the tree lighting on the 4th, and there will be a menorah lighting coming up with the rabbis in the area, but we didn't have anything that represented Kwanzaa. But due to issues with permits and possibly needing insurance and approvals, this project will be tabled to 2025. But we're hoping by at least the month of May, before we close out our CB8 year, that we can get a timeline of when we're going to get things done. So that way we're not running into this last minute thing during the holiday seasons. And our next meeting will be on January 7th at the Borough Park Library, which is right next door. At this point in time, Parks will be at the meeting to give us an update on the Borough Park Skate Park. Weather permitting, we might be able to get, since the park is right next door to the library, might be able to get a walkthrough of what those specs might look like. So that's it, come on out, and there will be a brief update about Mount Prospect Park Skate Park at that time. Thank you.
Public safety.
Public safety, good day. Mark Burton for November. We did not meet, and unfortunately for the Christmas season, we will not meet. Our next meeting will be the 4th Monday in January, and we'll be cooperating much more with the Youth and Education Committee and the Economics Committee for 2025. Have a good holiday.
Seniors Committee, I'd like to thank Tracy Collington. She came and volunteered to do a event, an arts and craft event with the seniors. I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and spend it with the seniors in our next meeting is the first Wednesday in January. Veterans.
We will be no veterans meeting this month. We will
thank you. We've met our time frame. I want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah,